Hi, everyone. This week I have Player Philanthropy Fund and Matt Stover, who started this fund. He was a kicker in the NFL for many years. Tell me about your group and why you started it. How about that, Matt?
Well, the Players Philanthropy Fund, Jill, thanks for having me on your show. And I really love to talk about it and the mission behind it. It is so fun because we've allowed athletes, celebrities, and many other people, just normal, everyday people, plug into our nonprofit platform and gain their nonprofit status. And then we do all the dirty work, all the back office stuff, making sure the receipts and everything are categorized properly. We do all the books. It's our tax return, our 990 tax return. We make sure compliance is happening with all the registrations in all the states. We have over 250 accounts, and about 60% of those are athletes and celebrities. So, and it ranges from coaches, and of course we deal with coaches' wives and many of the players and their advisors, such as yourself. A lot of agents, financial advisors, marketing managers. And what we do is we make sure that what they're doing out in the community is being represented well, even on the back office piece, so that the money that's being brought in is brought in properly, and the money that's being distributed through program or expenses is being done properly as well. So we don't want the player or the celebrity or anyone else's brand to take a hit because they don't understand the 501c3 rules. And in my mind, that's really where most people get themselves in trouble, especially athletes, because they think it's just do good. Doing good can also hurt your brand if you don't do it well.
Okay, so when you were a player, Matt, did you start a nonprofit?
501c3, sure I did. Yeah, I did, Jill. I started the Matt Stover Foundation back in 2001, right after we won Super Bowl 35. And the reason for that was that the NFL started to grant funds to NFL players who ever had a foundation. It was $10,000. Every year you applied, you had a foundation. So why wouldn't I, right? So that was one reason. The next reason was, instead of me giving away stock for my gifting for the years, because I would tithe and I would do other gifting, I would give stock to those organizations. I then gave the stock to my own private foundation, liquidated the assets there as a nonprofit donation, and then distributed the funds however, my wife and I and my board decided to do that. So it was a kind of a way for us to create a much more streamlined system. Now, the other pieces were that I wanted to build a brand and showing our community what the Matt Stover Foundation was doing, giving back to Baltimore and to other communities around the nation. So to me, all of those together are a big piece. And I think while you're playing, you should build that brand, and then you should hopefully build it strong enough to when you are done, like a Warwick Dunn or somebody like that, they have the opportunity to continue to do those good works outside of their career.
Okay, so like your particular foundation, what was your main purpose for your foundation? Who are you trying to help?
Usually churches, Christian groups, because I was a Christian guy, but I also help football teams. So I think you know that the NFL grant process, that they'll have a matching grant for football programs out there. So if I give 5, they give 5. And so I gifted $5,000, got a $10,000 hit for a lot of football programs. Some of them were homeschooled, some of them were high schools, whatever I could do to facilitate the game of football. I had also sponsored kicking camps, and I did that all underneath a nonprofit to give away my talent to others and to use a nonprofit arm to create that and help the kids in the community, give them an opportunity that they may not have had. And then we also did a lot of Catholic charities and orphanage and kids in our cities that are struggling to get educated, to get support. So we did a lot of that as well. So a lot of the fatherless issues that are here in Baltimore, we always try to get back to those type of causes.
Okay, so if you were to give somebody advice who's starting, wants to help their community, and this happens a lot in the coaching world, somebody gets hired as the head coach and their spouse wants to help the community. In fact, most of them want to help the community. Not only that, they get a ton of requests from a lot of people to help many, many, many charities and are more than willing to do so. But what is your advice to them?
Yeah, that's great. Great question, Jill. And it can go in several different ways, but I will suggest that if it's you and your husband that are working together, that you find a common ground that you both are passionate about. Usually the wife directs that anyways, right? Yeah, and the coach or the husband, whatever you want, honey, right? So, and then that's his new mission. I would also suggest that they do something that can be transferred to another city. So, coaching, as you know, being a coach's daughter, it's not for long in many environments, right? You know, you get hired and fired pretty quick, or you get other opportunities somewhere else, right? So I would suggest that they find a charitable cause that can be transferred, whether it's a national type of charity, cancer, or maybe you had a child that was ill, or you had a nephew, or something that you want to help, sex trafficking, you know, stopping that. And I bring that up because I'm actually an executive director for a producer for a major motion picture coming out in this winter that deals with that. And my wife and I are extremely passionate about it. So we put some dollars behind it. And in my mind, I think that if the both of you are together and you know that it's a cause that you can get around, and also realize that the coaches and their wives are typically pretty busy people, to say the least.
Yeah.
Right. So you want an organization that can actually execute, actually put the event together, put the fundraiser together, so that your husband and you can show up and utilize their brand, and also dig into the trenches where they can, not that they have to, because you got to be real careful with that. Because if you're the only one doing the work and you move, then it all goes to nothing typically. And so I would suggest that an organization that's very organized as well.
And don't you want to make sure that you maybe, like you said, you like pick one group you want to help? Because if you try to help 50 groups, you're going to be absolutely, I mean, you're going to spread yourself too thin.
Well, and the wife of let's say an NFL coach, that's what I can speak to. I'm not speaking that it can't be a husband with a wife as a coach. I'm not saying that, but I am saying my experience is to make sure that if the coach is doing too many things in the community, it ends up pulling on him too much, and it wears the relationship out. I've seen that happen. Tony Dungy's a very close friend of mine, and he was very careful with what he said yes to. And your wife needs to help you with that as well. And, you know, and you have a public relations firm or a marketing firm that can assist you with those opportunities too, and let somebody else be the bad guy for you to say, no, I really can't. And they'll take all the requests for you and then politely decline it based on the fact that he's got interest in this other cause that it's not theirs. So that would be my other thing.
Okay. The other interesting thing about your organization is the fact that, you know, there's a lot of different registrations in each state. And this is where I think this is a huge advantage for joining with a company like you or your company, because keeping up with the registrations is really difficult. Why don't you just explain that? Because I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand.
Well, for instance, let's say, you know, you're in California or you're in Texas or wherever you are, that a state requires a charitable registration for your organization. You have to be registered in that state. But if you choose to raise funds or do activities outside of your state, so if you're doing e-commerce through another state into yours, you have to be registered in that state. And so in my mind, we encompass all of that under one umbrella, because there's one tax identification number, which is the Players Philanthropy Fund. And then you plug into us, you now have you don't have your own EIN number. Mm-hmm. It's our EIN number. And now because of that, we're registered in all these other states. Every state that needs registrations, we're there. Also tax, the sales tax issue is let's say you're doing fundraising and you're selling t-shirts or whatever you're doing. We also take care of that and make sure that that is settled in whatever state you're operating out of. So if there are those rules, and then we take care of the tax return for you. So it's an umbrella that we aggregate all the different accounts, and we come together to make sure that those fees and all that process is already taken care of for you.
Yeah, that's great. Now because the only thing I've seen happen to a particular player of mine, actually, he got involved with another organization. I don't think it was exactly like yours. And that organization ended up not being legitimate. and it caused problems. So how does someone know that you have a great, ethical, legitimate company, that your money is not going to be utilized inappropriately? Because that is a very, very scary thing for every player, as you know, Matt.
I tell you, it's about due diligence. It's the litmus test is what I call it. In business, if I'm not willing to spend $10,000 to vet an opportunity to go into business with, I don't even do it. And I'm talking about vetting, mean hire a lawyer, hire an accountant, getting into the weeds of everything they do, including their own operating agreement. That's in the business world. In the nonprofit world, it would be validation, verification. It would be digging into seeing if they had any claims on them, any lawsuits. You can go into GuideStar, all different types of things. Also, get the name of a few of their clients, right? And look at their deck first. See if they've advertised who's on, just like you have on your roster. We've advertised our roster. If you have access to any of those without having to go through us, because we may pick the ones we want you to talk to, right?
Right. Of course.
And instead, hey, do your own due diligence, see if you can get in touch with somebody that we haven't recommended. In my mind, that will be the biggest litmus test of them all. And we suggest for people to do that, please. And that's why we put our roster on there. We've had one player leave because we didn't agree on how to manage their charitable activity. And that was because his marketing manager was doing a lot of the things outside of our protocols that we required. And it's only to protect the player and ourselves, since we're the fiduciary, right?
Right.
And she wasn't doing it. And we told her, then you can't do it this way. She said, well, and she convinced the athlete that it's time to go. Okay, see ya. Because you're going to do it our way, and there's a reason for it. It's not like we have all these rules that you can and can't do. You would have to do them if you had your own 501c3 anyways. So these are the type of things that we come around, and we make sure that we force compliance. And in my mind, the Players Philanthropy Fund, for the price that we pay, for what we do, and the experts we are, we're going to give you the cleanest platform to operate out of with regard to a fiscal sponsor, because that's what we are, FISCAL sponsor. We're chartered as a donor advised fund with the IRS as a 501c3, but we set up fiscal sponsorship contracts so that we can actually come around and pay hard costs for those individual accounts instead of just giving it to another 501c3. See, there's different rules. We even have another, Jill, we even have another foundation on top of the Players Philanthropy Fund with a whole separate tax identification number. It's called the Players. It's a 501c3. It is a private operating agreement. It's the PPS Benevolent Fund, and we can actually benefit the individual now through that. Where hardship cases, we pay for medical bills. We can pay for tuitions for college directly for the benefit of the individual. We can set up scholarship funds, and we activate it through the process. So that's a whole separate entity that we've set up to make sure that the flexibility for whatever the client wants to do, we can do that.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. So
Yeah.
what are you going to charge a player or a coach who wants to start a nonprofit?
Perfect. So first of all, if they started it on their own, they could not get it done as cheap as we were going to do it for them. Okay. So we charge 6% on deposit, but that's as we go forward. To set it up, we charge a $1,500 setup fee, but that includes the first $20,000 of your funds raised. So we're not going to charge you 15 plus. And then what we do on an annual basis is we want you to at least be raising $30,000 a year.
Okay.
If you're not able to raise $30,000 a year, then what are you doing in the nonprofit space? You shouldn't be in it. So we require an $1,800 minimum fee after that first 12 months. And to me, that's 6% of 30,000. And next thing you know, it's a great platform for them to operate out of.
Now, what happens if a player or coach is no longer coaching? They get fired by their team. What happens then? Because I think that's a major issue, actually.
With what? The firing?
Well, I'm saying a coach gets fired. You're not in that same community anymore. Maybe you're not even having that same name and likeness recognition that you had before. So how what is your process if something happens?
Well, first of all, you would hope that the coach has a PR and marketing firm or somebody such as yourself that's going to be advising them and getting them connected wherever they're going to be. I do think that their platform still exists, even if they're not in the same city. If you notice, most of these head coaches that do leave, Bill Cower and people that I know, Tony Dungy and Brian
Right.
Billick, they all still have tremendous influence wherever they are, that they get replugged in, and they still utilize the help of their advisors to do that. It is a process though, and you do have to cast vision prior to that ever happening. So
Right.
you don't want to be reactive in that situation, because most of the time they let it just fall to the wayside. But if you're proactive about that conversation, that when the day comes and you're no longer coaching here,
Yeah.
however that comes to be, then where do you guys want to end up? Where would you like to be? How can we get you connected in that community while you're still utilizing your platform, the active platform? And that's what I ended up doing, and I knew that I was going to stay here in Baltimore after I was done. So through that, the Players Philanthropy Fund was born, and we built it to what it is today because of it. I stayed here, and I made sure that was where my efforts went.
Gotcha. Okay. So how does somebody get a hold of you? How do they get a hold of your company if this is something they want to get involved with?
Well,
And I
it's the Players Philanthropy Fund, so it's ppf.org, and I'm at
okay.
matt@ppf.org, and Brandon, he's my sales and marketing director. He's actually, you see his face. Brandon's online, and he's Brandon at ppf.org. I've got a tremendous staff. We do all the technology piece behind it too for fundraising. We make sure that all the accounts are set up properly. If you have a web page, if there's a donate now button, it's connected to the right account. So anytime that you're out raising funds or doing any type of event, we make sure that those funds that come in and are distributed are going to be handled properly. So I say that because when you look at other people, they're going to charge you upwards of 10, 12, 15% for the same service we are. One thing we don't do, and I make this very clear, Jill, we do not do the event planning. We don't run the event. We don't help you raise the funds, meaning we don't put out all the PR for you, and that's for you to do. What we make sure is we make sure that the funds that come in properly, and
Yeah.
that they're distributed properly. And trust me, that's worth every penny of a 6%. Every penny.
I would agree with you on that. Now, is there anything different as far as tax laws go this year because of COVID?
No, nothing, except that more people have been more generous than ever. More dollars have flown through the nonprofit world, and we've doubled this year. It's been an amazing opportunity for us to come around a community and facilitate the giving on such bad circumstances and needs for our communities. So it's exciting. It's exciting to where we're going. I've got a tremendous team. And fiscal sponsorships can be really cheesy, because you can get around some people that are promising the house and are going to charge you a lot more. The next thing you know, you're upwards of 20, 22% on your fees to running an event or whatever it is. And we do our best to keep that cost effectiveness there. And we were talking today with a great credit card, a debit card possibility, where if you wanted to raise funds and give an individual the funds to be able to go out and buy, normal goods for yourself and your family, there is an encrypted debit card out there that can be preloaded, and you can only buy certain things on it, such as things at Walmart. You can't go buy alcohol and cigarettes, and you can't, do things online. It's very restricted, and it allows those people to be able to have access to those funds to buy those necessities. So it protects the foundation, and it protects those funds from being misused. So that's something simple that we've been able to activate, and we bring those type of opportunities to our accounts so that they have more opportunity to give funds away and to be able to help our communities.
Wow. Okay. So what about players though? What is your biggest advice for players?
Well, that they should utilize their platform. And I would be very careful creating your own private foundation. I would say 95% of them should not. If you have the bandwidth to do it, a Tom Brady, for instance. Yeah, I mean, you could have a gala and raise $1 million with Tom Brady, and then you're in good standing. Most athletes can't do that. And even if they could, I'd be very careful, because then you have a staff and you have to have people on salary, and it's your name, you're on the board, and you can find yourself in hot water real quick. So we make sure that the athletes know that, and their advisors know that, so that we could be, don't want to be, but could be the training wheels for that athlete to learn how to operate a nonprofit. And then we could cast them off onto their own 501c3 if they applied for one and were approved by the IRS. And so do we do that? We've done it many a times. People come in, start with us, get their status on the 501c3, and then they end up we transfer the funds out. That's not something we like to do, but we will do it if that's what's best for the athlete, for the player and for the advisor or whomever advising him. We'll be those training wheels, but it's, in my mind, I hope we prove it so well that they don't want to leave. And that's happened too, where they did create it, they went through the process, and they said, there's no way we're going to leave you guys. This is way too easy. And we appreciate all the services, and we couldn't do this on our own for the cost you do it in. And then somebody such as yourself, you'll be the one doing all the books. You'll be the one.
Attorney, I'm not an accountant, man.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you, if you're on the board and you have fiduciary responsibility, and those funds aren't being brought in, and your name's on it,
Yeah.
and you don't have D&O insurance because you didn't know about it.
I'm an attorney. You think I would do that?
No, don't do it.
No.
So those are the things you got to think about when you're doing it, right?
My dad has his own foundation, trust me. And I'm like, Dad, you got to set it up, which he did. But I mean, it would have been a lot easier if he'd gone through you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, if it's your own money going in and your own money going out, okay. If you're not using it for dinners and travel and paying the staff and holding events and all that other stuff, I would highly suggest be very careful on your own. But if it's just money in, money out, okay, having your own private foundation's okay, it's easy. But and it's a brand. But remember, inside the Players Philanthropy Fund, every gift that is given goes out as your personal foundation's brand's named gift. It's not going out as the Players Philanthropy Fund. And every check and every dollar raised is raised underneath that athlete's name or whatever the name of that foundation is. So it's not like it's branded PPF. We're a little bitty disclosure at the bottom of the page saying that this is powered by the Players Philanthropy Fund, which is a Maryland 501c3. That's all we do. But it looks and feels as if it's their own private foundation. So even the tax receipts that go out are underneath their brand. So in my mind, it's a great platform, and it allows a lot of flexibility and protection.
Okay, but if somebody already created one and now wishes they had gone with you, because I see that happening all the time.
Yep.
What?
It's simple. We set up an account inside of the Players Philanthropy Fund. The funds transfer right to us. And then if you want to keep your foundation active, your private fund, it's only it's a little postcard that will make sure it's filled out every single year. It's a 523. I can't remember the name of it. And in that case, that card is filed. It says zero balance on your active one. So you don't have to file a tax return because there's no money coming in, no money going out. But all the other funds are brought into the Players Philanthropy Fund. And then now you have the same name that you had been operating in, and we'll set up the account so that it looks and feels as nothing ever happened. And we do that all the time because they find out that we should not have our own private foundation.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Okay.
So it's just a little postcard you send into the IRS, you keep it, or we can share, an attorney's name to have it shut down, because that happens too. And sometimes that's the best route to do it.
Great. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you being on my podcast. I think this is a great service. And any of my coaches, my players, anybody who's even listening that I don't represent, please call Matt or Brandon. And I would highly suggest you do this rather than starting your own. Right? I mean,
at least at first, right?
Well, even with 50 states of registration in itself, you see
right
that.
That's $10,000 right there.
I understand that. And if you are getting money, let's say you're in California, but you have somebody who wants to donate from, Massachusetts, it eliminates a lot of those issues that if you are, and many coaches, okay, have a national.
Mhm. Yeah, the national presence, they have
Yes.
their bandwidth goes all the way across. It
Of
does.
course, and their alumni are all the way across, and
Mhm.
everybody's spread out. Nobody's in the same place
Yeah,
often.
we do international too.
Oh, I'm sure you do. Of course you would. The Australian hunters, I think, would be
Yeah,
really,
we
yeah,
do it,
love it.
and we want to empower them. We have Save the Rhinos in South Africa. We have an orphanage in Kenya. We're willing to do that and partner with people who need a nonprofit arm over here in the United States. And we can work along with it. We know the international rules and we know how to transfer the funds properly. So those are the things that you just have to know. And if you don't know, you find yourself in trouble. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you. Well, thanks for having
Thank you, Jill.
being on my show, and happy moving, Matt.
Thanks. Take care.